So let me tell you a story. I was in the office several years ago prior to selling my business on a Saturday morning, catching up on some things. And I saw my voicemail light blinking, and a voice clearly inside said, "You need to listen to that message." When I pressed it, I wasn't prepared for what I was about to hear, Chris. A frantic woman's voice that I quickly recognized. And she said, "Derrick, I know it's Saturday. You've got to call me back. They're about to send me to jail, and I don't know what to do." Now, Chris, let me ask you a question. Has anybody ever left a voicemail message for you saying they're about to be tossed into jail?
No, I have not gotten that one. I've got a lot of interesting ones, but not that one.
That was the first. And I knew this couldn't wait until Monday for me to call her back. That news would not age very well. Quickly called her back. She was so appreciative. And I said, "First of all, let's get right to it. Why are they going to send you to jail?" So she begins to read a letter that she received in the mail. And basically, the letter said, "You didn't move money from your savings to your checking when you wrote this check, and the check bounced. Therefore, you're going to go to jail." And I said, "Does the letter actually say you're going to go to jail?" She said, "No, but that's what's going to happen."
Welcome to Money Matters with Chris Hensley, where we spotlight financial literacy issues in the Houston community and beyond. And now your host, Chris Hensley.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Houston First Financial Group are not affiliated.
What if more money wasn't the end goal, but the beginning of your bigger purpose? Too many of us have been taught to fear money, feel guilty about success, and sacrifice happiness to get ahead. But what if you could earn more and live with more meaning? Today on Money Matters, we're talking to Derrick Kinney, bestselling author of Good Money Revolution and the host of Good Money Podcast. He's known as America's financial educator, and for good reason. Derrick believes that money isn't bad, and wanting more of it doesn't make you selfish. In fact, when you tie your income to impact and your profits to purpose, you don't just make more money, you make good money. In this episode, we'll explore the 3 levers of money that unlock wealth and freedom, why your generosity purpose could be the key to earning more, and how to flip your money script to finally live the life that you deserve. Whether you're stuck in debt, underpaid at work, or unsure how to build a financial future with meaning, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. Derrick, thank you so much for being on the show today.
My pleasure, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was honored to have you interview me at the T3 conference. And then when we spoke there briefly, I let you know that I saw you speak at the Future Proof, I want to say like a year ago or a year and a half ago.
Year
And
ago.
yeah, and you stood out from the crowd. That was one of my favorite topics. You're an ex-Ameriprise guy as myself, as am I, and that kind of got on my radar there. So I really liked what you have to say. So let's dive right in.
Yeah.
For listeners, let's start with the mission. And you have the book out, and I think a lot of people are familiar with the book. What does the phrase "good money" actually mean, and how does it differ from the traditional view of wealth?
Well, let me tell you a quick story, Chris. So, as I built a financial planning business for 25 years, I began to hear a change of tone with people as they would come into my office. And the goal of a financial advisor is to help people make lots of money, grow their wealth so they can achieve their goals, right? But what I began to hear was people telling me, "Derrick, I keep reading or hearing things that say if you have a lot of money, then you're a bad person. And if you're the CEO of a successful company, well, you must be pushing down your employees, robbing them of opportunities so you can make all the money." And some of them even said, "Derrick, I don't know if I want to make a lot of money so people don't think that I'm a bad person." And I really had to process that because it went against the free enterprise system. I mean, what America stands for is this American dream. How can you work hard, achieve it? And I prided myself as a financial advisor of walking alongside my clients and helping them craft a personalized strategy so they could achieve their goals. And so this really came out of left field. And that really was the impetus for the book, because what I realized was if people begin thinking that making money is bad, that flips everything the other direction. And instead, what I did is I said, you know what, let's come up with a concept that says, go make more money, but don't do it just to pad your bank account and have this bulging investment account and think that that's going to buy you meaning and purpose, that that's going to make you feel better, because it won't. It's going to lead to loneliness and emptiness. And you'll reach the top of this mountain and you realize nobody else is there to share it with you. You've sacrificed relationships and your own personal interests, and you've got this money, but nothing good to do with it. So I said, let's do this. Let's tie money to meaning. Let's say, go make a lot of money, go make as much money as you possibly can, and do it by adding value to people's lives. So you're improving people's lives, and therefore you're helping them make money. Therefore, you make money. Then the beauty is, tie a cause to your cash. Pick something that you say to yourself, that is just not right. There shouldn't be that in the world. And what can I do in a small way to make an impact? And then use that to motivate you to make more money, to do more good. So the name of the book is The Good Money Revolution, but the hidden meaning behind it is that when you make money and you do more good, it makes you feel so good that you want to make more money, to give more money, to keep feeling that good feeling. And that to me is like the ultimate feeling of when you lay your head on the pillow at night, you've lived a day and eventually a life of meaning and purpose.
I love it. I love it. Now I'm remembering why you stuck out because that speaks to me. I think it probably speaks to quite a few people. I mean, I growing up was raised in a trailer park, right? And now I'm managing
Wow.
millions of dollars. There's something called class consciousness, right? So that
Yeah.
that kind of guilty feeling of like, oh, am I so not imposter syndrome, but am I supposed to be here, right? So when you talked about this really spoke to me. I like what you have to say here. Let's talk about, you say money is good, so make more of it, right? That's a bold statement in a world where money often gets blamed for problems. Why do people feel guilty about making money, and how can they shift their mindset?
Well, one thing we need to go back to is people's bad money beliefs. So let me tell you a story. I was in the office several years ago prior to selling my business on a Saturday morning, catching up on some things. And I saw my voicemail light blinking, and a voice clearly inside said, you need to listen to that message. When I pressed it, I wasn't prepared for what I was about to hear, Chris. A frantic woman's voice that I quickly recognized. And she said, Derrick, I know it's Saturday. You've got to call me back. They're about to send me to jail, and I don't know what to do. Now, Chris, let me ask you a question. Has anybody ever left a voicemail message for you saying they're about to be tossed into jail?
No, I have not gotten that one. I've got a lot of interesting ones, but not that one.
That was the first. And I knew this couldn't wait until Monday for me to call her back. That news would not age very well. Quickly called her back. She was so appreciative. And I said, first of all, let's get right to it. Why are they going to send you to jail? So she begins to read a letter that she received in the mail. And basically the letter said, you didn't move money from your savings to your checking when you wrote this check, and the check bounced. Therefore, you're going to go to jail. And I said, does the letter actually say you're going to go to jail? She said, no, but that's what's going to happen. And so she began to tell me a story. She said, Derrick, when I was 7 years old, I overheard a conversation my dad received. He had just gone to the store to buy some school supplies for she and her sister, and he had accidentally bounced a check. And the store manager called and told the dad, I know you did this on purpose. I'm going to send the cops over there and haul you off to jail. So as a 7-year-old girl, she grew up believing that if you bounce a check or you make any type of financial mistake, you're going to go to jail. Well, I told her, look, the good news is you're not going to get fitted for the orange jumpsuit. You're not going to get hauled off to jail. I will call you personally Monday. We'll call the bank. I'll help you move the money from savings to checking to get this taken care of. But I said, most importantly, come in the office Wednesday and let's talk through this and unpack what I think are some things we need to deal with. So she comes in the office. Now, keep in mind, Chris, this is a woman that on the outside looks successful. She dresses well. People think she's wildly successful, but inside she was a wilting flower. This was a woman who in all of our visits, every single time we met together, would talk about, Derrick, why aren't I getting the promotion I deserve? Why aren't I getting paid what I know I'm worth? And what we began to unpack was, growing up, she had begun to build up bad money beliefs. And it began with her seeing her dad almost get, quote, hauled off to jail, and her believing that if I make any mistake or take any risk or lose money, that just confirms I'm not good with money. And therefore, I need to settle for where I'm at. And what we did is we unpacked all this, and she began to realize that the biggest aha was she said, Derrick, I can't believe I've been thinking like this. This has held me back. And it was a breakthrough moment. I mean, as a financial advisor, there's nothing more rewarding than those moments where the light bulbs go off for the client. It's one thing if I say it, but when they discover it, it's even better. Get this. Within 3 months, she got a $25,000 a year raise and finally got promoted to vice president. And she said, Derrick, it's all because of this situation and the conversation we had that brought this whole issue to light. And so what I would tell people listening right now is you may feel like and look like the most successful person, but if you know in your heart that you're not getting paid what you're worth and you're not in a position that you know you deserve, you probably have some bad money beliefs that are holding you back. And here's what I say. I like to think of myself as an anti-regret specialist. I do not want you at the end of your life to look back, just like in all these movies, and there's that gravelly voice that says, oh, if only I'd spent more time doing the things I love and taking more risks and having more courage. Live that today so that every day when your head hits the pillow at night, you know you lived your best life. And let's say no more to bad money beliefs.
I love that. I love that. Very strong information for listeners there. I love the anti-regret specialist, the idea that we're looking back on our life. What did we regret there? And the deep conversations about bad money beliefs. Where do some of these ideas come from that we have in our heads that we know aren't right, but they're there, right? So super duper important. Now you talk about this concept of generosity purpose. Can you explain what that is and how aligning money with meaning can actually help someone earn more?
So let me tell you a story about how I began as a financial advisor. So I was 26 years old, but I had a problem. I looked like I was 13. No gray hair, not a wrinkle on my face. But the bigger problem I faced was I didn't come from the gene pool of the popular kids. I didn't have the Rolodex of all the key contacts. I didn't have the money in my family. I didn't have any of that. And so I realized I needed to do something different. Well, what I did was I had a passion, and the passion was how could I support local education? So when I was a senior in high school, one of the regrets that I have is no one ever came back who was successful to talk to the students about what their life could look like post high school. I mean, we were robbed of that. They just said, take your math and your science and your history and everything's going to be fine. Well,
Good
most
luck.
people afford for you there, right? And so I said, I don't want that to happen anymore. That was just not right. So I called my alma mater principal and said, look, I want to recognize a student and a teacher of the month. He quickly said yes, because they're strapped for resources and they want to give recognition. So I came, this is going to sound so simple. I came with a $50 Amazon gift card for the teacher and a $25 Amazon gift card for the student. We printed up a certificate, and I just wanted to breathe life and let the student and the teacher know how much they were appreciated and valued. You know, I told the student, yeah, I know you're probably taking classes you don't even like, but just so you know, you've been recognized as a leader on campus, and I believe your future is really, really bright. Enjoy this gift card, treat yourself to something nice. And it made me feel good to recognize a student and to see their face light up. Then to the teacher, I said, you're the type of teacher that on Christmases and Thanksgiving years from now, it'll be your name that gets brought up. It'll be your name as the person that made the impact. And so let me give you this $50 gift card as a small thank you of appreciation. And then we got a picture taken of the student and the teacher and the principal and myself. Well, back in those days, this was 20 years ago, we had this technology called newspapers, kind of
Yes.
this kind of stuff.
I
And it's
remember
really
those.
kind of out of favor now, but what happened was I did not see coming. So we put these pictures in the paper because I wanted to recognize the student and the teacher. And about 3 months later, I get a phone call. And what this woman said to me changed how I ran my business for the next 25 years. and how I helped a lot of other people run their business differently. She said, Derrick, we know you're young, but we want you to be our financial advisor. And I crazily said to her, why? I'm so new to this. Why do you want to work with me? By the way, don't ever say that. Let
Not a good thing to say, but yes,
not a
I
good thing to
remember
say.
those days.
But what she said to me changed everything. She said, Derrick, we want to work with you because you care about what we care about. You care about what we care about. She said, we love how you support local education. And Chris, it was in that moment the light bulb went off. Wait a minute. I didn't have to be the smartest or the best looking or the best connected in my community. I just needed to care about what my ideal clients cared about. And she and her husband became my first $1 million client. And what it taught me was to go deep on generosity. And so it was crazy to think that giving $75 a month to the teacher and the student generated a $1 million client. And what I realized was, as I began to attract a lot more high net worth clients, they loved the fact that they worked with an advisor that knew what they were doing. We knew our stuff. We didn't guarantee returns, but we provided great service and helped them achieve their goals in a very custom tailored way. But then the other part of that magnet was there was a cause that they could be a part of. And what we found is that most people, when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the very top is this feeling of, did my life make an impact? And busy people, people that own companies, they're executives, they've got money, they typically don't have time to give back like they would like. So what they do is the cheat code is they can work with service providers and professionals that are involved in the community. So there's this sort of status that they get because they're partnering with a great financial advisor or attorney or CPA or realtor who is involved in the community. And so it's magnetic. When you can, I like to say, when you can own a problem that your ideal client struggles with, you become the owner of that. They know that if you have that problem, go to that person to solve it, and you have a cause you care about, it's a magnetic pull that is irresistible for people not to want to work with you.
I love that. So much information there for people, for listeners. The idea of that deep generosity, the what you call the cheat code, right? So
Yeah.
the person who is successful out in his career, but maybe they don't have the time to give as much as they want, but they find this affinity that's something that you're passionate about, that they're passionate about as well. And then there's this magnetism that pulls each of you together, and you're attracting those higher net worth clients when you came into the industry with no natural market, right? That's saying. So I love that. I love that. That's where in a way you're making the world better because you're finding these things that you're passionate about. I see this. I love this. Let's pivot just a little bit because there's something else that you talk about. You talk about the three levers of money. Um, the book outlines what you call the three levers of money: save more, crush your debt, and earn more. Which of these do people struggle with the most, would you say, and why?
I think the biggest struggle people have is a belief that they have a lid on their income. And I'm a big believer in let's trade the lid in for a sunroof. If you have a lid on your income, that means you're believing I'm only worth this amount of money. And let me say this, and this may be very controversial, but every day that you cash that paycheck, even though you may think to yourself, I am worth more than this, you're actually not. And here's why: because you are willingly agreeing to accept that check and cash it. By you being willing to cash that check, you're saying to the company, I do agree with you. That's what I'm worth right now. And so if you don't like that, then you have a problem to solve. And one of the things that we've done, there's a downloadable called gettheraiseyouwant.com that we've prepared for people. But it's a way that whatever job they're in, to ask a couple key questions. It's just an easy to follow checklist. And it's a way to approach your boss to get more than the typical 4% raise. So many Americans are sort of conditioned to believe that, well, a good year for me is if I get the 4% raise. That's table stakes. You will not become a millionaire and escape the middle class by getting a yearly 4% raise. It just doesn't happen. And so what I tell people is you got to focus on not only the goals that you have financially, so you know what you're working hard for, but the more you can drive up that income. And the way to do that is by asking three key questions in your current job. And by the way, before I tell you those three questions, you no longer want to see yourself as the job title that you have at the company. So many people say, well, I'm a administrative assistant, or I'm the marketing coordinator, or the vice president, or the manager of whatever it is. That doesn't matter. I want you to begin thinking of yourself as a problem solver. What problem are you solving in the job you're in right now? And when you shift your thinking to that, now you're a paid problem solver with a specialty in solving a specific problem. If you just think of yourself as a commodity, you will never get paid what you're worth. But if you see yourself as a true problem solver, then the key is, here's the three questions. Number one, in my current role, how can I help the company make more money? Number two, how can I help the company save more money? And number three, how can I help the company be more productive? Okay. Now, if you want to get less than a 4% raise, here's the guaranteed approach. Knock on your boss's door and say, you know what? The price of eggs are through the roof. Inflation is so high. I need to be paid more money. And here's the problem with that. Every boss, male, female, all around the world, they have this one favorite radio station they all listen to every day. It's called WIIFM. What's in it for me? You see, your boss necessarily doesn't really care about your personal financial situation. They deal with the price of eggs themselves. They have their own expenses. But when you can come to the table, and by the way, you're already proving this, that in my job, I'm helping the company make money, save money, and be more productive. Now you become highly valuable. When you add value, then you become more valued. And that's the biggest mistake people make, is when they ask for a raise, they say, well, the research I've done based on my position, nobody cares. Well, I deserve more money. Nobody cares. The cost of living, nobody cares. When you make the company money, save the company money, make it more productive, that's how to do it. So you've got to shift your thinking. We've had people that are making 50,000 go to 65,000. People at 75 go to 100 and above, because they shift how they view themselves. And by the way, if you're making more money, you become irreplaceable. The company has to pay you more because of how much money you're making for them. It's a different way of thinking, but it's the way people go from middle class to millionaire.
I love it. I love it. So you are not the title of your job. You are a problem solver, and start thinking of it that way. Then come back, because they're not looking out for you. They're never going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, time for a raise, right? Without table stakes. We're not just talking cost of living, but we're talking about this laundry list of things that you have to put together, those three questions that you're telling people that they need to come at it that way. That puts them in a position of power where they can actually come back and have those great conversations, as opposed and get them to turn off the what's in it for me channel, right? To get their full attention so that they can hear them. I love it. I love it. Now, your book, in part 2, you get into what's called bad money, especially harmful money mindsets. What's one of the most common, what you would call toxic beliefs that you see, and how can people start flipping their money script?
Well, it's important to look back and say, again, if you're not where you are right now financially, then you've got to do something different to improve your financial situation. You hope and a prayer. Well, a prayer is great, but hope and a prayer without a plan is probably not going to get you to where you want to go. That's just the cold, hard truth. And so the key here is to know what it is that you want financially. So many people get pitched different ideas, and if they're at their office, they're by the water cooler and their coworker shares this hot stock story that they made a whole lot of money on. And they want to jump in and buy it. But the reality is, by the time the hot stock tip gets to you, it has cooled down dramatically. Okay, so remember that. And also, what do you see on social media? Most of it are pretenders. These are people who've never met payroll before. They've never had to bring on a client. They never struggled to grow their business. So know that there's a lot of pretenders out there, and to stay focused on your goal path and be willing to say to people, I am so happy that that is good for you, but it's not the best for my goal path. Those words should just roll off your tongue. Okay. So going back to the bad money beliefs, one of the things we might have to look back on is what is a person's past? Now, keep in mind, most of this occurs from well meaning parents and grandparents wanting to keep you from pain, wanting to save you from great disappointment, wanting to keep you from having a hurtful experience. So here's typically how that sounds. There might be a fist that bangs on the kitchen table, and you're a young, very young person at home, and someone says, if only we had more money, then we would be happier. So then we begin to hear that money equals happiness, and the lack of it means we live less than. Or there's the most common and fatal comment that an adult can say to a young person. That is, in life, there's the haves and the have nots, and we are part of the have nots. That's just our lot in life. Now that, without using a better word, sucks. That is the worst possible terrible thing you can say to anyone, especially a young person who respects you, the person saying it, and they begin to put that lid over themselves. That lid starts to form at a very, very young age. And what I want to do is we want to trade in lid thinking, and we want to purchase sunroof thinking. Because the goal is, just because you might grow up very, very poor, you don't have to have a poor mindset. You see, the smartest parents, parents of athletes do this very, very well. One of the ways that many, many athletes can escape almost abject poverty is they become very, very skilled at their craft, and they have parents around them that say, look, right now, financially, things are very, very bleak. But if you keep on this path and stay focused, we will achieve a path for you that will lead to financial independence. We can learn a lot from that. They take away distractions, they're focused, they're exercising, they're doing all they need to do to achieve that goal. But when you think about people who tell us that, they're not trying to hurt us, because their generation before them told them, just get the safe job, just get the secure job, get the job with the great medical benefits or the great 401k or the pension, and stay there the rest of your life. And the problem is that generation, for the most part, hated their jobs their entire lives. I want to rip that playbook up and throw it out the window, because you deserve better. And right now, there's so many opportunities for people. So even if you are 50 years old listening right now, just ask yourself, just like if you went to the doctor, he would do an x-ray to see what the problem you were having was. Do a financial x-ray and simply write down my assets, my liabilities, what I own minus what I owe. Hopefully that's a positive number. And just write it all on one sheet of paper and say, you know what? Enough's enough. These things are going to change, and begin to write down on the right-hand side, here are 3 financial goals that I have for myself. And now you've got purpose, and you begin to think about what's at stake if I don't achieve that goal. For example, we had a couple recently that came in the office. This was a couple years back, and they were really worried about having enough money to save for retirement. And I began to ask them, what would happen if you don't save enough to retire how you want? And they began to describe to me this visual image of the two of them walking along the beach, feeling the kernels of sand scrunch between their toes, and seeing the sun go down, and they're holding hands together. And that image was seared in my mind as they described it. And they said, if we don't save, we can't have that. I said, that's going to be the motivation. So every time they came back into my office, I actually had a picture printed that made it look like it was the two of them walking on the beach. I would show them, reminder, here's why you're doing this. Because life comes at you so doggone fast without a reminder daily of why you're doing this and where you're wanting to go. You will easily get distracted, not intentionally, but just because life comes at you. Life has a plan in absence of your working your plan.
I love it. I love it. We are right here, Derrick. We're right here at the end of the show. Do you imagine that went by in 30 minutes? And we barely even tipped the tip of the iceberg here. I had so many other questions I wanted to ask you. The book, Good Money Revolution. Derrick, what have I forgot to ask you that you'd like to leave listeners with today?
I think the key is our website is derrickkinney.com. And the whole principle here is, of having built a successful financial planning business for 25 years, one of the top in the country, there were 5 key steps that we discovered that would lead people to go from middle class to millionaire. We call it the Millionaire Money Map. And so people can access that at derrickkinney.com. We just want to democratize and give everyone the secrets that for so long people felt like they were locked up in a vault that only a few people had access to. We want everybody who wants to leave the middle class, who's working hard, they've got a great income, but they feel like they're still living paycheck to paycheck. We want to stop that right now.
I love it. If you're driving right now, don't feel like you have to stop. We're going to have that on the show notes there so you can find the link that Derrick just shared with us. Derrick, thank you so much for being on the show. Have a good rest of the day there.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris.